Have you ever wondered how a wind turbine capable of powering thousands of homes using only the wind is made? Behind those giant blades you see on the horizon, there is an industrial process as precise as that of an airplane. High-tech composite materials, molds the size of a building, colossal ovens, and cranes that move pieces weighing tens of tons. In this video, we will go step by step inside a wind turbine factory to discover how one of the pillars of future energy is born. The process starts on computers. Teams of engineers design the blade in 3D using computer-aided design software. In those models, not only is the exterior shape drawn, but also the interior. Reinforcements, ribs, thicknesses in each area, and the exact angle of the aerodynamic profile along its entire length. The software simulates the blade's behavior in the face of strong winds, gusts, ice, turbulence, and even potential braking failures. Stresses, deformations, vibrations are analyzed, and every inch is optimized so that the material is used efficiently, without excess or weak points. Once the digital design is approved, it has to be brought to the real world. To do this, giant molds are built, which are the physical base where each blade will take shape. These molds have impressive dimensions. They can exceed 120 meters in length and have a very precise curvature, almost as if it were the negative impression of an airplane wing stretched out. They are typically made from metals, such as aluminum or steel, combined with support structures and, in some cases, layers of composite materials to improve insulation and thermal stability. The manufacturing of the mold is a process in itself. Large blocks of metal are cut in computer numerical control machining centers. Milling machines work for hours or days, removing material and leaving surfaces with tolerances of a fraction of a millimeter. They are then sanded, polished, and coated with layers that help achieve an extremely smooth internal texture. This is crucial because any imperfection would be copied onto the blade and could affect its aerodynamics or create stress points. The mold is built in two halves, an upper and a lower half that must fit perfectly together, as if they were the two sides of a giant shell. When the mold is finally ready, it is not used immediately. First, it undergoes tests to ensure it meets the geometric and structural requirements. Its curvature, length, flatness in each section are measured, and it is verified that it can withstand the temperatures and pressures of the manufacturing process without warping. Creating such a mold can take months of work and a significant investment, but it is essential. Hundreds of blades can come from the same mold throughout its useful life. Once the molds are approved, the most visual part of the process begins, the layering of composite materials. First, the mold's surface is thoroughly cleaned and a release agent is applied, a type of non-stick coating that prevents the blade from sticking to the metal. Then, a first layer of gel coat or surface resin is applied, which will be the outer face of the blade. This layer not only provides color and finish, but also protects the internal composite from moisture, UV rays, and erosion. Then, the layers of fiberglass are arranged, and in the critical areas, carbon fiber is used. The fabrics arrive in rolls or pre-cut pieces and are arranged following a very precise pattern. Some layers are placed longitudinally, others diagonally, and others crosswise. The goal is for the blade to withstand forces in multiple directions, forward bending, torsion, and cyclic loads due to rotation. Between each layer, resin is added, typically epoxy resins or other thermosetting resins that, when cured, form a rigid matrix that envelops the fibers. In modern blades, a technique called vacuum infusion is often used. Instead of applying the resin with brushes, dry fiber layers are placed inside the mold, covered with a special wrapping, and a vacuum is created inside using pumps. Then, liquid resin is allowed to enter from one end, and due to the pressure difference, it spreads and saturates all the fibers evenly. This method helps eliminate air bubbles, achieve a more controlled resin content, and results in lighter and more homogeneous parts. Inside the blade, not everything is just a simple shell of composite. To reinforce the structure, elements like spars, internal beams, and cores made of lightweight materials, such as high-density foams or treated balsa wood, are integrated. These components function as the skeleton of the blade, increasing rigidity without adding too much weight. They are mainly placed in the area closest to the hub, where the loads are higher, and along the leading edge and trailing edge, where controlling deformation is important. Once all the layers and reinforcements are in place, it's time for curing. which in practice is quite similar to baking a cake, but on an industrial scale. The molds, now loaded with composite material, are closed and moved to giant ovens or heated using integrated resistance systems and thermal fluids. The temperature is gradually increased until it usually exceeds 70 degrees Celsius and is maintained for several hours. Sensors distributed throughout the structure control the temperature, pressure, and curing times, as any deviation could cause poorly hardened areas or unwanted internal stresses. Inside the oven, the resin changes state. It goes from being a viscous liquid to a solid and resistant polymer. When the cycle ends and the control systems give the green light, the mold is allowed to cool slowly until the temperature drops to safe levels. Only then can it be opened. Removing the blade is a delicate moment. Cranes and lifting systems carefully separate it from the metal surface, aided by the release agent. The result is a massive piece with a perfect aerodynamic shape, but it still requires several more hours of additional work. The next step is finishing. Although the inside of the mold is very smooth, there are always some burrs at the seams of the halves or in the areas where the structure was closed. Specialized technicians sand, fill small imperfections with repair resins, and sand again until a continuous surface is achieved. Then additional layers of protective paint are applied, which not only give the blade a uniform color but also protect it from the marine environment, sand, ice, and other factors that, over the years, could wear it down. Before the blade is approved, it undergoes very thorough quality control. Ultrasound equipment, X-rays, or thermography inspection techniques are used to detect possible internal voids, delaminations, or defects in the composite material. Key dimensions, total weight, and the position of the center of gravity are also checked because any deviation could affect the balance of the turbine during rotation. In specialized plants, fatigue tests are carried out, where blade prototypes are flexed millions of times on test benches to simulate years of operation in just a few months. While the blades are being manufactured and validated, in other areas of the plant, the tower and the nacelle, also called the nacelle, which is the module where the main mechanical and electrical components are located, are being built. The tower is typically made of cylindrical or conical steel sections. Each section is made from large steel plates that are curved in rollers and welded to form giant tubes. Then the joints are machined, flanges are installed, all the welds are inspected with non-destructive testing, and a corrosion-resistant treatment is applied, followed by several layers of paint. Inside the tower, stairs, platforms, wiring, lifting systems, and in some models, small elevators are installed to allow technicians to access the nacelle more quickly. It is a kind of spine of the turbine, which must be rigid enough to support the loads of the rotor and flexible enough to withstand the stresses of the wind without collapsing. The nacelle is the technical heart of the turbine. Inside it is the main shaft, brake systems, the speed multiplier in many models, the electrical generator, lubrication systems, the transformer, and control electronics. The outer casing is usually a steel or cast structure, coated with fiberglass panels that protect it from the environment. Its manufacturing involves suppliers of multiple high-precision components, giant bearings, gears, shafts machined with very strict tolerances, and high-power generators. The assembly of the nacelle in the factory takes place at assembly stations. First, the main structure is secured, then the low-speed shaft is installed, which will receive the movement from the rotor. Next, the bearings and the gearbox, if the turbine does not have direct drive, are mounted. Then the generator, which can weigh several tons, is coupled. The entire system is carefully aligned to minimize friction losses. Mechanical brakes, sensors, hydraulic systems, and electronic control units are added, which will communicate with the wind farm's operations center. Upon completion, both the tower and the nacelle undergo quality control and functional testing. Electrical connections, safety systems, wind speed sensors, yaw mechanisms that allow the nacelle to turn toward the wind direction, and pitch systems which regulate the angle of attack of the blades to control the generated power and protect the turbine in extreme winds are checked. When all the pieces are finished, one of the most delicate challenges begins: transportation. Moving a blade over 100 meters long is not something that can be solved with a regular truck. Special platforms with directional axles capable of rotating independently are used, which allows them to navigate narrow curves and complicated stretches. The routes are usually planned months in advance, analyzing roads, bridges, and tunnels. Sometimes it's necessary to cut traffic, reinforce sections, or dismantle railings to allow the convoy to pass. For offshore wind farms, the logistics become even more complex. The blades, towers, and nacelles are loaded onto ships or self-elevating platforms that transport them to the installation site, where high-capacity maritime cranes take control. Installing the turbine on site is an impressive process. It all starts with the foundation. On land, a large concrete base is built. At sea, monopiles, jacket structures, or floating foundations are used. Once ready, the first section of the tower is placed, and the bolts are leveled with precision. Giant cranes lift the remaining sections to form the complete column. Finally, the nacelle is hoisted and positioned at the top of the tower. Since it weighs several dozen tons, the maneuver requires total accuracy. Technicians located at the top guide the crane operator to achieve the exact coupling. Then the electrical, communication, and orientation systems are connected. The final step is to install the blades. Sometimes the rotor is assembled completely on the ground and then lifted. Other times the hub is mounted first and the blades are added one by one. In both cases, each blade is fixed with high-strength bolts and special brackets. From the ground, the whole assembly looks like a gigantic futuristic device pointing to the sky. The wind becomes a decisive factor. An unexpected gust can complicate the entire operation, so work is only done when the conditions are ideal. If the weather changes, everything stops. When the rotor is installed, the functional tests begin. Brakes, electrical systems, orientation, and blade angle control. Then the turbine is connected to the grid, and the first rotations are made, monitoring vibrations, temperatures, and power. If everything is correct, the turbine enters into operation. From that moment on, this colossal structure converts the wind into clean energy for decades, the result of a precise and demanding industrial process.